Someone I am so happy to call my friend.
Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to introduce to you the Honorable Philip Frederick.
Gotcha.
Frederick Mitchell.
Hey, thank you. You know, I always start off when people come with that. I say Lyndon Johnson went to Canada and he was speaking to the Canadian Parliament. And after an introduction like that, he said, "Man, my father would have thanked you, my mother would have believed you." Good morning, everyone. Prime Minister, former Prime Ministers, Mrs. Davis, distinguished panel guests, my parliamentary colleagues, and the audience. First, a couple of housekeeping things. I see Billy Gaudette in the audience, and I see Jan McCartney. And is Ori Sands here? I know they were all her good friends, so glad to see you all here, so I want to recognize you in addition to that. And I also want to say about this building, because I was asking the Secretary General, how did I get up here to be speaking at this event this morning? And then they reminded me this used to be my building when I was Minister of Foreign Affairs, so that's the reason I'm here. The former Prime Minister told me that this used to be the home of the first Chief Justice of the Bahamas and that he's buried on these grounds. We were trying to identify where the grave is. He said, just go in the back and pick a spot. Put the plaque up. Say, this is where he's buried. So there's still time. Toni Morrison, who is a Nobel laureate now passed, said once in an interview with the New York Times that when you have power, you get to name things. So we name in this building today because we have the power to do so. And justly so. Prime Minister again whispered in my ear, he said, the Secretary General said, the Chairman on this occasion said that she wants to thank the Prime Minister. So he leaned over to me and says, does he have the support of the government, though? Yeah. So I want to make it clear that when the Prime Minister speaks, the government speaks. The absolute support of the government. I've worked with Prime Minister Pinling, Prime Minister Christie, Prime Minister Ingram. And one thing that was common amongst all of them is because I recall the early conversations I had with Prime Minister Pinling. And he was explaining to me on the death of Rodney Bain, untimely as it was, as the Secretary of the Cabinet. And he was about to appoint Margaret MacDonald as the Secretary of the Cabinet to succeed him. And he's talking about women and their reliability as workers in the public service. And he said that you could not get a better bet. Women, you could count on them. They turned up to work. They did the work. They didn't complain. They gave you sound advice. Now, I'm not sure whether that began the chicken or the egg, but since then, every Prime Minister has adopted that as a mantra. And you see how women have elevated themselves through training and advice to the highest heights in the country, supported by these Prime Ministers. And some people are worried about it. I'm completely neutral on the subject. It should be 50-50 anyway. And if men ran it at one point, what's the issue with women running it? No issue. But Ruth Millar was an exemplary woman. And beyond that, not a woman per se making her exemplary, but she was an exemplary person, an exemplary manager, an exemplary leader. And she also looked to the future because I mentioned Jan, the Financial Secretary is here. I remember Marlon Johnson as well, who also served as acting Financial Secretary. And she gave all of these people an opportunity to learn what she learned and to know what she knew. And if there's any possibility of ruling from the grave, the Financial Secretary, with an iron hand, to make sure that this country's finances are properly guarded and shepherded. And I think you can put that down to Ruth Millar. And before her, of course, was Eddie Isaacs and Reg Wood. They were also financial secretaries. So the country has had valued public servants from the time of its independence going forward. And we owe them all a great deal of support for all the work that they do. I also want to thank and mention my friend Scorpio, who did the work on this building. Extraordinary, good work, and I say congratulations to him. They asked me whether I had actually been taken on a tour of the building, and I wasn't since it's completed, but I gotta tell you that when I was in opposition and they wouldn't let me officially in any building, Scorpio was sitting on the steps one day and he said, "Come man, let me show you what the fellas are doing." So I got to walk around the building and see what it was going to look like, and it's really done well. So the last thing someone whispered in my ear before I came outside is, I think it was Prime Minister Ingham, said, "You should take this building back for foreign affairs, you know." So I reminded him that the Prime Minister has just moved me as the Minister for Public Accommodation, so I no longer have that power. Where's Pia? Is she here? Because maybe she could help me out. Get my building back. But this is a great occasion. I'm really proud to have been asked to say these few words in support of a great woman, a great Bahamian. And to end as I began, Toni Morrison says, when you got power, you get to name things. And so today, we name in this building after Ruth Millar. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Minister Mitchell, and thank you, Executive Chairman Cartwright.